As long as I've been with Jazz, Jazz has not been the only person that I've had sex with.
What does a submissive woman do for her man?
Everything.
What does that mean?
You know, like packing his bag, unpacking his bag.
Damn! Stop treating people like the hell.
From baby daddy drama to Instagram meltdowns, Jasmin's world is spiraling out of control, and now Cam Newton's story has exploded into full-blown chaos. The timing couldn't be messier. He's gearing up to introduce a brand new woman while Jasmin is visibly pregnant, and the internet is eating it up like it's primetime TV. What we're seeing play out is nothing short of a circus. Podcasts dissecting every move, social feeds lit up with hot takes, and non-stop online chatter turning their private mess into public entertainment. The glossy image they tried so hard to sell has been ripped apart, exposing the raw, unfiltered reality behind the doors. And honestly, it's hard to watch because it feels like Jasmin is publicly giving herself over to a man whose track record already waves red flags everywhere. Even a psychologist on his own show once warned him that he's destined to end up building broken families. But just in case you missed how this whole storm first blew up, let's rewind for a second. The fire really started with one raw Instagram post from Jasmin Brown that left everybody stunned and scrolling back twice to make sure they read it right. In a moment of shocking honesty, she admitted she'd be terrified to ever have a son with Cam Newton, writing, "If God gave me a son, I'd be so nervous because I feel like I subconsciously raised him to be a man I could only dream of, never experienced, and that's traumatic."
He's spoiled. And you know, when I talked to my girlfriends about it, I was like, oh, how are you guys doing? And I'm just like, girl, he's rotten. I'm like, he's spoiled rotten. Like, he's rotten.
The internet went wild because this wasn't just some random late night thought. It felt like a direct dart thrown straight at her relationship with Cam. People instantly picked it apart, and the vibe was undeniable. She was spilling real pain. And here's the kicker. This confession is coming from a woman carrying her second child with Cam, while he's already got 8 others out there. For her to post that out loud wasn't just a cry for help. It was a full-on confession of heartbreak. She basically revealed that the man she's building a family with is the exact type of man she'd never want her own son to grow into. And that's a wound you can't hide with filters or captions. The fact that this bombshell came from someone who used to defend Cam with her whole chest is exactly why it cuts so deep. But if you've followed Cam Newton's history with women, then you already know where this train wreck is heading, straight into familiar territory. This man has always been oddly open, almost too open, about his twisted, contradictory views on love, family, and commitment. Let's not forget, for years he was tied up with his ex, Kia, the chiropractor. They built what looked like a picture-perfect family, until reality smacked her in the face after 4 kids. And just like that, Kia packed up and left quicker than the ink could dry on their last family photo. And here's the pattern. Despite the years invested, despite building an entire household, Cam never once locked it down with a ring.
As long as I've been with Jazz, Jazz has not been the only person that I've had sex with.
That's his thing. He'll build a family, but he won't commit. And worse, he's never been shy about embarrassing the women in his life, dragging their private issues right into the public eye. Just like what's happening with Jasmin now, he once did with Kia, airing it all out for anyone willing to listen.
Jazz allows me to speak to her, and we are able to have banter. And I hate that I embarrassed her, because no woman ever wants to admit that openly. But what? I'm sorry, that their person has not always been with them.
On his Funky Friday podcast, Cam even flat out admitted that marriage was never his ultimate goal. 8 kids. By how many women? That's the million-dollar question that keeps coming back every time Cam opens his mouth. In a sit-down with Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, he basically laid his whole philosophy out on the table.
I'm not married, right? I have beautiful children.
How many?
8.
I didn't do my research. I thought it was 4, but 8. Okay.
No, baby.
Cool.
It's
By how
8.
many women?
3.
And the translation was loud and clear. He's perfectly fine making babies with as many women as possible. But when it comes to marriage, that's a no-go. To Cam, family is something you build without a contract, without commitment papers, just vibes and children running around.
And this is the kicker. I want more. Now,
By multiple women? What's the intent
I
of
just
this
want
saying, or by
God
your
to bring
wife?
them. I just want God to bring them.
Oh, okay. And you have, so you just...
Because my point is this. My desire to get married is lower than my fear of divorce. So, As you had said, Dr. Brian, you said it, I didn't say it, I will agree. I'm just taking my time.
But here's where things really started rubbing people the wrong way. When he split with Kia, instead of keeping it respectful and co-parenting quietly, he dragged her straight into court. He filed for paternity and custody, then pulled one of the pettiest stunts anyone's ever seen. He actually sued her to take back the Bentley he once gifted her. And make no mistake, that lawsuit was never really about the car. Sources close to the situation said it for what it was: a cold, calculated power move meant to intimidate Kia and force her into accepting his version of normal, no matter how twisted it looked from the outside. Paired with his own words, it became crystal clear. Cam loves to brand himself as the ultimate family man, a super dad with a polished smile, but his actions tell a whole different story. Nothing screams contradiction louder than preaching about fatherhood goals while suing the mother of your 4 children over a car you freely gave her in the first place. But here's the thing about Cam. His entire image has always leaned on these so-called traditional views about women, and it's been one of his biggest talking points since day one. People have dragged him for years over his old-school, borderline patriarchal beliefs, but instead of backing down, he's doubled down and built his whole identity around them. On his own podcast, he spelled it out with no shame. To Cam, a boss woman isn't defined by her success, her career, or her independence. Nope. In his book, if a woman can't cook, doesn't know how to be quiet, and won't let a man lead, then she doesn't fit the part.
I grew up in a 3-parent household, my mom, my father, and my grandmother. And I knew what a woman was, not a bad bitch.
Okay, what's the difference?
A woman.
Naturally, the internet went into full meltdown over those comments, but Cam, he never flinched. Not once did he walk it back, because in his eyes, women who clap back online are exactly the type he believes should submit and fall in line. But here's where the irony cuts deep. Because all this preaching about how women should behave is coming from a man who, as a licensed psychologist once pointed out on his own show, is the very definition of selective.
A woman for me is handling your own, but knowing how to cater to a man's needs.
He shows up when he feels like it, disappears when responsibility calls, and leaves behind a trail of broken dynamics. Yet somehow, he still positions himself as the one qualified to lecture women about how to build and maintain a family. The contradiction writes itself. Cam talks like a family values guru while living like the total opposite. Just when it seemed like things couldn't spiral any further, Jasmin Brown herself stepped right into the circus, voluntarily. For years, Jazz had built her reputation and social media empire off being a firecracker comedian, the queen of sharp, savage sketches that roasted pick-me women straight into the ground. She made a whole career clowning the women who bent over backwards for men who didn't even deserve the effort, proudly crowning herself the anti-pick-me queen, the one who stood tall for self-respect and zero tolerance for bare minimum nonsense. Her message was loud, fearless, and unapologetic. Never be the woman carrying all the weight. Don't be the one slaving in the kitchen, scrubbing up his messes, paying the bills, and acting like his therapist while he tosses you crumbs in return. And here's the twist. Jazz wasn't just a comedian. She became the voice for a whole generation of women tired of being drained in lopsided relationships, tired of pouring everything in while their men gave the least. She was their mouthpiece, their champion, the one who kept saying what everyone else was too afraid to admit. That's exactly why Jasmin's current situation feels so wild. It isn't just a contradiction, it's a total role reversal. And that's what got people whispering nonstop, because it looks like she's slowly turned into the exact type of woman she once shredded in her comedy sketches. The irony is brutal because now it feels like Jasmin is living out the same mistakes she used to clown other women for making. The moment she fell head over heels for Cam Newton, it was like game over. Overnight, her entire philosophy went up in smoke, and everyone was watching it unravel in real time. In interview after interview, Jasmin suddenly flipped the script. Gone was the anti-pick-me warrior, and in her place was a woman proudly calling herself a servant to Cam.
Hey besties. I know I'm gonna offend some people, but trust me, this is coming out of love. This message is for all the pick-me's. Pick-me's are women who try to do everything right just so a man can choose me.
She bragged about knowing his every single need before he even opened his mouth, about packing and unpacking his bags like she was on payroll, and even scratching his back at night until he fell asleep like a baby. At one point, she didn't just admit it, she proudly declared she had actually found joy in serving him. And let's be real, the way Cam gets women to switch up like this needs a case study because it's shocking every time. For fans, it was like watching someone step into a parallel universe, a bizarro world where Jasmin wasn't the bold queen of independence anymore. She was now the poster child for submission. This wasn't a small pivot. It was a dramatic, world-flipping transformation from "I'm a boss who demands my man meet me halfway" to
my love is my superpower. And I used to hate that about myself. But now it's like, I'm just embracing it. Like, that's who I am. Like, if I love you, I can heal you. But
It's your joy.
It is my joy. You know, I love to see him eating the meal that I cooked. I love seeing him sleep easy. Like every night, like clockwork, I scratch this man's back to sleep. And I know when he's asleep because I can tell when his breathing changes. And some people might think that's psychotic, but that's like, I just know that's when I'm like, oh, I can stop now. But I find joy in being your rest. And it shouldn't be conditional.
She bragged about knowing his every single need before he even opened his mouth, about packing and unpacking his bags like she was on payroll, and even scratching his back at night until he fell asleep like a baby. At one point, she didn't just admit it, she proudly declared she had actually found joy in serving him. And let's be real, the way Cam gets women to switch up like this needs a case study because it's shocking every time. For fans, it was like watching someone step into a parallel universe, a bizarro world where Jasmin wasn't the bold queen of independence anymore. She was now the poster child for submission. This wasn't a small pivot. It was a dramatic, world-flipping transformation from "I'm a boss who demands my man meet me halfway" to "my happiness comes from serving him." And the sting wasn't just professional, it felt personal, like a betrayal of everything she once stood for. Watching Jasmin step into the same role she once mocked felt like the ultimate hypocrisy, and the internet did not hesitate to drag her. The backlash was instant, vicious, and merciless, because the internet never forgets. When you spend years preaching one sermon, then turn around and live the total opposite, people are going to come for you. One user summed it up with the kind of brutal bluntness that cuts deep. Jazz out here making single moms just like Nick Cannon. And that one line caught fire. Suddenly, it was the phrase everybody repeated because it nailed exactly what people were already thinking but hadn't said out loud. And that was just the spark. The internet dug its claws in even deeper, pointing right at the glaring contradictions at the heart of Jasmin's choices. Sure, a few voices came through with sympathy, saying even the loudest critics of toxic love can get caught up in it themselves. But let's be real, the overwhelming majority weren't buying it. To them, this wasn't an accident or a tragic blind spot. Jasmin didn't stumble into the fire, she saw the flames and still walked straight in. One particularly savage comment made the point crystal clear. Cam is weird, and the women who deal with him clearly got something going on with them too. And here's the thing. People aren't just holding Cam accountable anymore. They're questioning Jasmin's judgment just as much, because at some point, she's going to have to face the truth. She didn't just get caught up, she actively played a part in building her own downfall. At the end of the day, Jasmin's emotional Instagram post wasn't just another life update. It read like a desperate cry for help dressed up as a caption. To some, it looked like a jab at Cam Newton, but underneath it all, it felt more like a raw, unfiltered breakdown, a public diary entry where she was almost admitting to herself, in real time, that she had become the very type of woman she once built her whole brand mocking. And here's the kicker. While plenty of people believe Jasmin has now seen the light and might eventually leave, just like Kia Proctor once did, the truth is a lot murkier. Despite the humiliation, despite the internet dragging her through the mud, it's hard to picture her walking away anytime soon. Because let's be real, there's no way she's just now figuring out who Cam is. She already knew the man's history, the baggage, the pattern, yet she still chose to have one child with him, and now she's carrying another who'll be his 9th. That's why many believe she might stick it out. Not because she's blind, but because she's stubborn, determined to prove a point and pretend everything's fine. But best believe this Instagram rant won't be the last. This is just the start of many public outbursts Jazz will have, each one peeling back another layer of what life with Cam is really like. The honeymoon phase? Over. Now she's staring straight at the real Cam Newton, and that reality stings. The most brutal part? She knew the red flags, she preached against them, and still, she walked right into the fire. And in the end, Jasmin's breakdown wasn't just about Cam, it was about the painful realization that she's turned into the very woman she once ridiculed. Meanwhile, Cam, he hasn't changed a bit. Not then, not now. So tell me what you think. Was Jasmin's post a wake-up call or just another chapter in a saga that's only gonna get messier? Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, and see you on the next one.